Hi guys, welcome to Rooted. We are so glad that you are tuning in. It has been so fun to come to you guys with all of our amazing ministerial staff wives. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I've heard some really great feedback, and I'm so thankful that you guys are enjoying this series as much as I'm enjoying doing this series. Today, I have my good friend Amanda Mauldin with me. And Amanda is the amazing wife of Larry Mauldin, who is our young adults pastor, who's about to celebrate his 1-year anniversary serving on our staff. Amanda has 2 super cute kids, Ava and Max, and we'll get into talking about them in just a minute. But thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
I just wanted to just calm everyone's nerves. Often when I get people to come here on this couch, it can feel a little weird and a little uncomfortable. And so I'm so glad, Amanda, that you are here and you're joining me. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about you. So first of all, I know you grew up here, but just tell people kind of where you grew up, a little bit about your family of origin, and then maybe where you graduated from high school, and include a funny story of when you were growing up, kind of one of those earliest memories.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm from Wichita Falls, born and raised. Been here my whole life. My parents still live here. They've been married 47 years, and I have an older brother and older sister, so I'm the baby. Was very fortunate to be raised in a Christian home. They had us in church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Really gave us that solid foundation. Let us be a part of all the youth stuff, the church camps, mission trips, you name it. So very thankful for that. As far as an early memory, I went to Wichita Christian School whenever it was at Edgemere Church of Christ. And I remember I was in the pre-K class, and we had gone outside for recess, and a friend of mine and we thought it would be a really good idea to stay outside when everybody else lined up to go inside. So we had this all planned out, and we were going to go hide in the bushes whenever everybody else lined up.
Rebellious streak.
Yeah, so that was my rebellious state. So.
The 4-year-old.
Yeah. And so the teacher called everybody to line up, and so we went and hid in the bushes, and everybody went in, and a few minutes go by. It seemed like forever, but I'm sure it was probably 10 minutes or so. And then we realized nobody was coming to look for us.
That makes you feel special.
And so we were like, okay. And then we just kept getting scared, thinking, oh no, how much trouble we were going to get in. So we eventually just made our way back to the classroom, and kind of that walk of shame in front of the whole class, and getting our name written on the board and having our parents called. And so that was...
Yeah, that did not turn out the way you'd think it would.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of want everyone to panic, like, where did they go? And instead, you're just getting your name on the board.
Yeah.
That's a big bummer. Well, so you graduated from Holiday High School, which I think is so fun because my kids are out at Holiday, and now your kids are out at Holiday. So that's really fun, kind of a full circle moment. And then... Where did you go to college?
Larry and I, we both went to Midwestern and graduated from Midwestern.
But now you didn't know each other at that point, did you, or
no,
did you? Okay.
No.
So how did you meet him?
We met, it was kind of interesting because we both grew up here. We both went to the same daycare when we were little. Whenever we started dating, we came to find out,
that's so crazy.
how
so lots
our
of
paths
ways you could have crossed.
Yeah, we had just missed each other in a lot of different ways. We even worked at the same daycare when we were in college, but at different times. So we met our senior year at Midwestern. He was graduating in December, and I was graduating in May. And we met through a mutual friend, one of my good friends that I grew up with, Amy. Best friends. I was in her wedding, so I was in the wedding party. And then the guy that she was marrying, Casey, Larry was good friends with him, and they worked together. And so they ended up having a couple's dinner shower for the wedding. So we both showed up to the dinner shower, and I was actually in a long distance relationship at the time, not looking for anything, but I happened to see him, and I just noticed him, and I was asking Amy, I was like, hey, who's that? And she's like, oh, that's Larry. And
just Larry.
But then how we met, somebody had spilled their drink during the shower, and so I went to go get paper towels, and he went to go get paper towels, and so we literally met over the spilled drink. We were cleaning it up, and then we went to stand up, and we're like inches from each other.
Sounds like a Hallmark movie,
Yeah, like one of those slow-mo.
Yeah, exactly. Your eyes met, and you're like holding soppy paper towels. That's beautiful.
And so we introduced ourselves, and just kind of hung out with Amy and Casey through the whole wedding events and everything, and double dated with them. And so the long distance relationship had ended by that point, and we just started dating, and we knew each other.
And it was pretty quick, right?
Yeah, it was a
Wasn't your
whole
relationship pretty quick?
3 months.
Okay.
And we got engaged, and of course, that's not at all how I, had told God that was how that was going to go.
Right, because that
not at all
normally
how
works for us when we tell God what we need and what we think is good to happen.
So not at all how I had planned it, but just knowing who he was and the kind of person that he is, just one of the most genuine, caring, passionate people that I've ever met. So,
And I think if you've been around Larry for any amount of time, you can see that passion, and you can see his desire to love people and to point them to Christ.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think you can have more than a 5-minute conversation with him without seeing that. I think it just
Definitely.
so flows out of his heart. But I think you had said that just in knowing more about you, that there had been something that really kind of knit you together, and that was your heart for missions. That both you and Larry, even though I don't think at that point either of you really felt necessarily called to ministry, but that you had a heart for missions.
Yes.
And so fast forward after you got married, then you had an opportunity to actually go and serve abroad, right? So if you'll just kind of tell us about that, because I think that's such a neat thing that you guys have in your story.
It actually kind of started whenever we were dating. I was actually applying through YWAM, Youth with a Mission, to go do a session after I graduated from college.
Like a short-term mission trip? Okay.
And he was applying through the IMB for the Journeyman program. He was going to do a term with them, or that's what our intentions were. And so we knew that missions was something on both of our hearts and that we really had a passion for. So shortly after we got married, I was working at United Regional. Larry was still at Beacon Insurance doing his computer programming. And he was working part-time for Colonial in the youth ministry. And so we got real involved helping with that. Some of the best days of our life doing that. It was a lot of fun. And we couldn't shake that call. There was just that urge and that prompting to go and do that. And the longer we waited, we just kept feeling disobedient. And so we initially met with an agency early on, it's like pretty soon after we got married, and the people that we met with were pretty wise in saying, just trying to get used to the whole culture of marriage itself and getting to know each other and spending more time.
Sure, before
just
you
in marriage.
Suddenly go into overseas missionaries.
Yeah, and then you're planted away from all of your support and everything.
Right.
So we listened to that, and we continued on in the ministry that we were doing at Colonial, and then our jobs, and kind of getting comfortable with our jobs, and we had our home and our 2 dogs and our cars, and
kind of what every couple your age kind of does.
Yeah, and
normal.
And we thought, okay, well, we're doing ministry, this is good, but just every time we heard something about missions, if there was a speaker that came and talked at the church, anything about just going, we just were like, okay, this is what we've got to do. So we met with a representative from the IMB, and we went through that application process, which was about a year long, with interviews, going to Richmond, getting all the references and just all of that. So it was about a year-long process. And then we left for Uganda in 2009.
Okay.
So
now, did you both have your heart set on a certain people group or a certain location beforehand, or were you just kind of open to where the Lord wanted you to go?
Not at first. No, we really didn't have any idea of where. And so whenever we met with someone from the IMB, we had them just present with us the jobs that were open in the people groups. And so we just spent a lot of time praying over those. And it was really kind of between, it was somewhere in Africa. We were thinking like Kenya, Uganda, or Japan. I know those are 2 totally different, but the people groups, we were just really praying about that. And we wanted to be somewhere where we could be a part of a team, and there really wasn't a team established in Japan. And so Larry went, when he was working with the youth with Colonial, they took a trip to Panama City Beach for Big Stuff Camp. And while they were there, there was this speaker from Kenya. His name was Jack, and he gave his testimony. And so Larry came home from that trip, and he's like, okay. He's like, this is where we need to go. And we were like, okay. So that's kind of how that
I love that, just the sovereignty of God, just in those little moments, continuing to place that burden on your heart. And it's funny you said that, because when I was in college, I was dating my husband, who is my husband now, but we had broken up. And I remember calling my mom and crying, because I had originally thought maybe I had a ministry call, but I remember sobbing to her on the phone saying, God's going to make me be a foreign missionary. because that's the last thing I want to do. Like, I have no desire to go to a foreign country. I have no desire to be a missionary, but now that I'm a single girl, I'm going to have to be a missionary. And my mom, I remember her telling me, and if you're called to the mission field, if God is calling you to ministry, He's going to give you such a passion and such a burden that you are not going to not want to go. And that was such an encouragement to me. And I think that's kind of what you and Larry experienced, was just a burning passion for where the Lord had you. Not that it was going to be easy or that it was going to be, you know, the safest route, but just that burning passion to be where God had you. And He didn't have me to be a foreign missionary, at least not at this point. I mean, I guess my life isn't over yet. But so then how long were you in Uganda?
We were there for 2 years. When we signed up, we didn't have like a definite end date or, I mean, a specific time frame.
So there wasn't a term you were signing up for necessarily?
They had like a 3-year apprentice term that you could sign up for, but basically we went just not knowing, like, okay, this could turn into a second term, a third term. I mean, we didn't want to put like an end date on it.
Sure.
So we just went. Neither one of us had been to Uganda before. So we packed up everything that we could take in our suitcases in a crate, had it shipped over. And that was back in 2008 when the housing market was not really good. And so we ended up being able to rent our house out, sold everything. And just looking back on those times, you know, and seeing how God provided every step of the way and seeing how He got us there is really incredible to think back on. And so yeah, we really didn't have a set time frame, but it ended up being 2 years for us. So.
Okay, so and then what did you do? If you could just boil down,
we went as church planters, and so basically Larry would work with some of the Baptist pastors there. We were in a village called Mitiana, and he worked with some of the pastors there, just helping them with interpreting scripture, theology, different things like that. We had teammates. It was another wife and husband and 2 kids. So we did a sports ministry camp. We helped with medical clinics. There was an orphanage about a mile down the road from where we lived. And so we would go down there and minister to the kids, the staff there. And then the wife of our teammate, Christine and I, we would go down to a village about 15 miles away every Thursday. And we would do like a little English lesson and then a Bible lesson. We'd work with our language teacher throughout the week, trying to get them to help us learn a Bible story in their language so that we could try and tell it in their language. And so some days it works, some days
it didn't work out as well, but that's so neat. And actually your daughter was born in Uganda, right?
Well, she was born in Nairobi, Kenya.
Okay, but while you were overseas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's got to be crazy too, to leave, not know when you're coming back, and then you have your first child over there.
Yes.
And then God called you back home. And so since you've been back in Wichita Falls, tell us what you do now, because I think it's just such a, it just really describes your love and your compassion for people. And I think it's one of those jobs where a lot of people look at it and go, I could never do that. But just kind of talk about what you do, and I think it's probably one of your favorite things you've done, right?
Yeah, so far. I've been there. I'm a social worker for Hospice of Wichita Falls, and I'm working on my 10th year being there. So I really do enjoy what I get to do, and just being a part of that organization. And I love the mission of Hospice, and just getting to help people, patients navigate their end of life journey, basically, kind of helping them, you know, find out what are their final wishes, what are their goals and their plans, and what do they want this to look like, you know, however much time they have left, and trying to help just provide that emotional support, and then also physically with, you know, resources in the community, and just being that liaison for them, and just a lot of hard, difficult conversations, but very, very rewarding, and in the fact that they would allow us in during that time of their life.
Right.
You know?
And I'm sure the relationships you build with the family members of the person that you're serving, I mean, has got to be so encouraging too, because they're grieving too, and they're going to be the ones that are left behind.
Right.
And so just being able to walk through, I know Larry's talked a little bit about just, you've had certain clients that you've really gotten invested lots of years with, or a period of time with, and just the fact that you can minister. So it's once again a role that's not ministry, but it's such a ministering role.
Yes,
So,
very much a full-time ministry is how I see it. I mean, I had a patient that I had for 7 years, and we built quite the relationship. And
I'm
then,
sure.
like you said, just being there for the family, because sometimes we become like part of the family.
Sure,
You know, and
absolutely,
so
yeah.
then to have them lose their loved one, and then also kind of us stepping out, we still try and remain available, and we also help provide that bereavement support and be there for them,
Right,
you know,
and
regardless.
you're part of their intimate moments. You know, those last moments that are kind of the ones that are etched in people's hearts and minds. You're a big
Yeah.
part of. So that's so neat, and I love that. And so you work there full time.
Yes.
So Larry's here full time. You're there full time. You have 2 kiddos. Talk a little bit just about the difference in your kiddos and
Oh, goodness.
their ages and just some fun things.
Yeah,
about
night
them.
and day. They are for sure night and day. Avy is our oldest. She's 9. She'll be 10 in a couple of weeks. And then Max is 6. Oh goodness, how do I describe them? Avy is she is just our ray of sunshine, full of life, full of energy. I mean, she's never slept a wink, I don't think. She is ready to go as soon as the sun comes up every day. She loves to dance, sing. She's our little free spirit. And then Max is a lot like his daddy in that he likes everything a certain way. He's very organized. He's very methodical in what he does. He puts his shoes up just right. You know, I mean, just total opposites.
Right. Very high energy, though.
Yes.
Right? Both of them
Oh,
are very
yeah.
high energy,
Yeah.
which is just like Larry, because he'll come in and sometimes if we're having a stressful day, he's like, just go take like a 5-mile run. And I'm like, are you insane? I would be
Yeah.
dead if I took a
Yeah.
5-mile run. He's like, I mean, just go out and do a little jog.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome. So
And then
anyway.
Avy is extroverted like her daddy, and then Max has that introverted, real shy, bashful side like his mama. So.
Right. So just tell us a little bit about, because you've kind of hit so many roles. I mean, when you and Larry got married, he wasn't in vocational ministry. Then you moved as missionaries. Then you came back, and did Larry do insurance work before he started at Christ Academy?
Yes.
Okay. So he kind of has done non-vocational ministry work, still serving, you know, the different churches. I know he's been involved in some other churches here in town as well, on staff. And just how have you kind of handled your family relationship through all that? Because it's a balancing act.
It is.
You know?
It is. And that's something that we're still trying to learn, learning that, you know, flexibility is key, you know, whenever, because it's not just like an 8 to 5 type
You
thing.
don't punch a clock.
Yeah. And so just trying to be as supportive of him as I can be, knowing that he's doing what God's called him to do, and just trying to be as supportive to him in that, and trying to stay flexible. And it's been a challenge, but it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's given us a lot of different opportunities. And
Well, I know we've seen him too want to support you because he so believes in what you're doing in the ministry that you have at Hospice. And obviously especially in this time when you have kids at home, the calls that you make, the conversations you have are not really things that you want your kid every 2 minutes breaking in going, mom, mama, ma.
Yeah.
And so just kind of that dance you do as a married couple, as you support each other. And I think you guys are a really good picture of that. And I know, you know, something that I love about your family and your relationship with Larry is that you guys have a very strong mutual relationship and mutual respect for each other. And you prioritize each other first. And I think that's so important. I think that's such a good example, because I think ministry can often get forefront because there's always ministry that needs to be done. And I think that you and Larry have found a good balance. I know you're still working, obviously, on it, but just being able to prioritize when it's time to step away and go, it's time to be with my family. I'm going to turn my cell phone off. I'm going to, turn my ringer off. I'm not going to look at emails or whatever that is. And same for you, because I would imagine your ministry too is all consuming. I mean, you can't schedule when people are going to need you and when that grief hits. So I think you guys are I guess I just want you to know that I think that you guys are such a good example to others.
Thank you. Well, I know Larry, he does do a good job of that. And that is one thing he's always made us a priority, you know, and has always wanted us, because he knows that if things aren't healthy with us, you know, whatever else he's doing is probably not going to be real good either. So.
And I think, that's part of the reason I wanted our ministerial wives to come here, because I do want our members and our friends to get a little peek into your personal life, because I think a lot of times it's easy to see people that step up on a stage or teach a life group lesson or, stand in front of a Bible study and think a certain thing about them or not think certain things about them. And I just think it's so good for people to see the real part of ministry, that it's hard, it's a struggle, but it's a joy. And you guys get to serve together. And it really makes a beautiful picture. So one of the things that we always ask, and this is the reason it's called Rooted, is just what has rooted you through all of your life. You know, I love that you talked about the foundation your parents gave you. And I think I grew up with a similar foundation, and I don't know where I would be had I not had that. I'm so thankful people come to the Lord later in life, but I'm so glad that I had the foundation that I did. And so through all that, though, just having a good foundation doesn't mean our life is going to be easy. And I know that you guys have walked through lots of struggle in your life. Just what has been something or a few things that you really feel like you come down to that has rooted you and really caused you to then flourish?
For me, the top two things would be scripture, and then just reminding myself of God's character, his attributes, and just knowing that, even like times during this pandemic, you know, when things can look so crazy and you can be consumed with fear and our economy, and, you know, just reminding myself that God's in control, he's sovereign. And scripture, again, is full of his promises. It's full of his character, and just how he's faithful, and how we've seen that time and time again in our life. And even there was a verse that, even as a parent, you know, as hard as it is being a mom, and that's one of my biggest, goals, I guess you would say, is just raising good kids and being a good parent. And, you know, so many times we can listen to the lies and the whispers of the enemy and get caught up in things that we tell ourselves or that he's trying to tell us. And so there's a verse in Isaiah, it's Isaiah 40:11, and it talks about how he tends his flock like a shepherd, and he carries the lambs close to his heart, and he gently leads those who have young. So just like going back to certain scripture that reminds me of who he is and his character, and that, you know, he's gently leading me, and that I can, you know, hopefully if I'm walking in the right way, my kids will follow. And just all kinds of examples, but that was just one that came to mind. But
yeah, and I love that story. And the reason I love that scripture, just a little personal story for me, is that my dad, that's how he would always encourage me when I first became a mom. He would always say, you know, just like a sheep, the Lord always gently leads those with young. I just remember him saying, Ann, God is leading you gently because you're with young. Just that truth. And my dad now has Alzheimer's. And so he doesn't tell me that anymore. He doesn't necessarily go back to those things that he used to, but it kind of goes back to that foundation of, I know that's the truth of scripture. And I'm so thankful that I had a father that poured that into me, and a mom too. But that scripture it's then us going back and telling ourselves that, you know, and we talk so often on this couch how we have to preach the gospel to ourselves, how we have to be the ones, because we're the loudest voice that we hear. Everybody else, you know, is speaking, and we have a lot of loud people in our lives, but we are the loudest voice. And so what are we saying? So I love that you said that, and I think that's so good, just to focus on who God is, not who God, you know, who other people say he is, but what does scripture say? Because that is truth.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Definitely.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I know that people got to just a great glimpse of you. I don't know if people even know all of the things that you've done. And we didn't even get into this, but she actually, when she was in, I guess maybe high school or college, served with Vanessa Collier, who was one of our other staff wives before they moved on to Austin. They did childcare together. So I just love how the Lord just makes all these connections, just all the ways that he orchestrates our lives. It's so fun to see. So thank you for being here, and we hope you guys will join us again.
Thank you.